update to my original blog post that was entitled Something Positive. Um, I initially wrote that in 2016. So that was literally 10 years ago. At the time, I was in the very beginning of deep, 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 gloomy, gray grief. I had just lost my youngest daughter. She was almost on the cusp of her 22nd birthday. She just suddenly died. She had a massive asthma attack, and that was what the original content was about, is me surviving that. And in 2016, that was when I had tried to go back to work after my daughter's death, and because her dad did, he managed to just bury his grief under a workload of work that would not allow him to even think about it. And that seemed to work for him at the time. I didn't realize at the time that that was not a very healthy way of dealing with grief. Is just to bury it, because eventually it's going to come back up, and you're going to have to deal with it at some point. But in his case, he has, that was his way of dealing with it. In my case, I crashed hard. So in 2016 was 3 years later. And to be honest, between 2013, her death in November, and 2016, September, when I posted the blog, I couldn't think of anything positive at the time, because I was just coming out of 3 years of darkness for real. Because when she died, it was so sudden that the world literally went dark. All the color went away for me. And I just couldn't see anything happy, positive, bright, cheerful. All colors were muted for me. It was like there were blinders. It was like there was a gray fog that I was living in that would not allow anything to penetrate, especially light of any type. So I felt like I was walking around in darkness for about 3 years. And so when I posted the original blog post in 2016, I was just beginning to start seeing more than just gray. However, I had a long road to go at the time. Um, since then, it has been a really rocky road. My mental health journey since losing my daughter has been a hard road to travel. And additionally, after she died, then just as I was really coming back out of it and really trying to be me again, because I had lost me in being so consumed with her as a child. She was sickly, and then as a teenager, and she was a normal teenager, but she was energetic. She was a lot of things, but basically consumed my time and my attention. And so being without her and without that constant demand, years after her death, it left me feeling super empty and without purpose. And so I was kind of lost for a while in my grief and even coming out of it. And then, COVID, we had to live through COVID a world, population. We had to live with COVID. And not only did we have to live with COVID, but the sheltering in place and all of that I was trying to get through my mental health journey and really just get myself into healing. But I wasn't ready for therapy. I tried therapists, and that did not work out very well, because I felt like I was paying money for somebody to sit there and nod their head, look at their watch, and then, count the time and placate me. And it just really did not feel like this was helping at all. So I stopped the therapy. Also, because I have a psych degree in my home. My daughter has a psychology degree. So living with her on a daily basis, and she's grieving the same loss that I'm grieving. Um, it's kind of like living with a therapist, but not, because she is able to understand what I'm going through, and she because she's going through it herself, but she's also, because of her education and her training, she understands why, and she's been able to help me understand why I feel the way I do, and why the mind works the way it does. So that's been very helpful. And with her also having a pharmacy tech degree, she understands the medication that I'm on as well. So I'm able to share with her what's happening with me with my medication, how I feel, are there any side effects? She's able to help me with that as well. So I feel like I'm pretty good without therapy, and I found a really helpful way to help me get thoughts, negative thoughts out of my head. I found my own homegrown way to do that. Not that I figured out something brand new that nobody else has figured out. It's just that what I'm doing works for me. And basically, I just said, I could talk to myself for free. If I'm going to talk to a therapist who's just going to watch, just follow their watch and check the time every 15 minutes to see if time's up, and that's all you're here for. You just want to get paid so I can talk to you, and you don't give me any answers or any feedback back. You're just waiting and making notes. That didn't help. So I said I could talk to me for free and save my $170. So I did. And that started helping a lot. And my name is Tina May, and I really liked being a girly girl and dressing up and wearing my high heels, and because I worked in a lot of jobs that were corporate, and I was the first face that people saw when they came to the company. So my job was to look a particular way and present myself a particular way. And having come from the beauty industry and going into corporate America after I went to college, um, I I really, really increased my corporate look. So I walked around looking like a corporate person with a briefcase because I had to be organized, and living with untreated ADHD all my life. I had to always have a planner on me and write notes and all that stuff. So I carried a briefcase because it was just easier to put everything I needed, organized in a briefcase. But because of my look, and the way I like to dress and present myself, I looked very corporate. I looked like and a very important person that people wanted to know exactly what do you do, because clearly whatever you do is working well for you because you look amazing and you present yourself amazing. Well, that feedback was really nice to get, especially because I worked so hard at presenting myself a particular way. However, Um, when you get a hard knock like a sudden death of someone that close to you, and grief kicks in as hard as it did for me, um, when you start coming out of it, the last thing you're concerned about is how you look. Because when you're in that dark place where I was, I didn't have time. I didn't have bandwidth in my head to care or worry about my outward appearance. So I went from super corporate to in a cave wearing pajamas for 3 years and just drifting through life. And then when I finally came out of that, I couldn't work the corporate type jobs I had before because the grief was all consuming of my mind, and I just couldn't think. I couldn't think clearly. I also did not know that I had ADHD until I was 59 years old. So by that time, I was done with corporate America. I was done with working anything except maybe rideshare driving, which I enjoy doing. At that point, it was just really a positive thing just for me to get up and leave my bed and leave my room and interact with the family, because I had been in such a dark place for so long that it was it was a positive step, just me just coming out of my room and putting on actual clothes. So I went full circle to from a person who was a tomboy growing up and didn't really care about what people thought of my appearance, into my adult life where appearances were everything. Um, and then I went to beauty school, learned how to really do it professionally, head to toe. Then I went into retail, where I sold, high end retail clothing, which exposed me to another level of clothing and shoes and the way to present myself. Um, so I was the full package when you looked at me, and I also was that person, who I embraced entrepreneurship because I started off as a beautician, which is self employment, and I liked having my own thing where I could make my own schedule and do work when I wanted to and work as hard um, or not as I wanted to. So I specifically pursued jobs for quite a while that were self employment or outside sales or recruiting or things like that, where I still had to present myself on a corporate level, but at the same time, I was still self employed, which was really, really nice because it gave me the control over my career, my job, how I earned money, my schedule, all of that. But after such a shattering loss, um, followed by trying to come out of my dark cave and then exiting my dark cave right into a worldwide pandemic, and then having to shelter in place after I had converted over to rideshare driving. My style changed. My personal style had to evolve with my job in my life. And trying to get back into step after a prolonged period of grief, was hard. It was very, very difficult. And something that had to be done away with was the whole concern about what people think about how I look. I had to let that go because it wasn't about how I look, it was about getting through the day. If I could successfully get through the day, I felt I had a win because there were days where I couldn't get through the day. I just laid in the bed and sat in the dark, and I couldn't remember the hobbies that I liked. I couldn't remember the things that I used to do for fun. I couldn't remember any of that because the grief was just all consuming and it just kind of blanked out everything else. So I was struggling to find something positive to say on my blog that day. And it took me a while to find something positive to say. And the only thing I could think was positive, well, at least I woke up today and brushed my teeth, took a shower, and put on clothes. So that's a win. Let's thumbs up that. But if we fast forward to today, 2026, 10 years after that something positive blog, I have to update and add where I am today because I've had to take a rather unorthodox process to put in place to help me get back on track again. I'm still not back on track, but I am tremendously 50 times better today than I was 10 years ago. And that is due to a number of factors, not the least of which is my family support group, my immediate family, which is my two remaining daughters, they're twins, and they're 40 years old, and my ex husband, who we have been divorced for 25 years now, and we all still live in the same house, because we lost one person that everyone relied on to bring the sunshine and the happiness into the room. And when she died, she took that away with her. And we all went into a deep depression and nobody wanted to be alone. So we just all stayed together as a family and said, we're going to get through this. We're going to lean on each other and we're going to get through this. And I know that's very, very strange for me to say about my ex husband, living with my ex husband that I've been divorced for 25 years with. But the thing is, shared grief, shared experiences, shared lives tend to make you bond. And if your bottom line for both people is the health and welfare of our children, then that was what kept us bonded. Is we both were very concerned about our kids. And when we lost one of them, our concern then refocused to our remaining daughters who were understandably depressed because they lost their baby sister. So the dynamic is really different. And I think I'm going to have to talk about that because it is a really unusual situation that I live in. But I count myself fortunate to have my two remaining daughters so loving and so caring and, have elected and decided, they discussed this and they decided to spend their adult lives with their parents because why move out and try and struggle on your own when home is always there? So just stay at home. And it made sense, especially since they're twins and they are literally halves of a whole, each one of them. So together, they are perfectly content with their lives and they love each other as best friends and twin sisters. Um, and they have the same mindset when it comes to taking care of their parents and in their old age. And so it's just become something, a situation that is just positive in and of itself, our living arrangements. So I don't have to struggle too far now, today, to find something positive. Even though I've been through so much tragedy in the last 10 years, because not only did I lose my daughter, but I lost, on the ninth anniversary of my daughter's death, I lost my mother to the day, 9 years to the same day that my daughter passed, my mom died after a fight with stage 4 liver cancer. And then 2 days after that, my brother died. And then 2 days after that, my sister, she just exited the family. And in my mind, she's dead too. So I lost 3 family members in 1 week on the anniversary of losing my daughter. And that left me with one remaining sibling. And all that happened within a 10-year period, the last 10 years. So it's been rough trying to get back up on my feet and get through my mental health journey and get Tina back to Tina. It's hard. And I don't think I'll ever be the same Tina I was before all this tragedy happened. But I am a very, very much more experienced Tina today. I have learned from life beating me up, gut punching me as often as it possibly can, throwing Trump into the White House twice in that same 10-year period of time, and watching him dismantle our country step by step is also a source of stress. So, all of this together, the politics, the economy, my personal situation, life has just beat me the hell up. And today, I can actually say, I don't really care what I look like, not like I used to, because to me now, it's all about getting through the day and being comfortable while you do it. That's really all that counts. That's really all that matters to me at this point. Um, and that's just growth and maturity. Um, but that's where I am today. And the reason why I was thinking about this and why this was on my mind today is because um, the weather here in California, where I live, is has been really, really erratic. Not nearly as erratic as it could be, but today is this is February 22nd. Normally, we're still bundled up a little bit because here in the Central Valley, usually February is a cold month. But I'm sitting here in a sundress with my shoulders out in February. uh, which is highly unusual for where I live. Normally, we've got snow on all the mountains that surround us, so it's cold in the valley this time of year in February. But right now, the trees outside are confused. They don't know what to do. They don't know whether to bloom because it's warm. It's supposed to be 64 today. 2 days ago, the high was 53. We had hail. It was hailing yesterday, or actually 2 days ago. And then today we've got 64-degree weather and I'm sitting in a sundress. So, it's unpredictable all the way around. But what I was thinking when I was trying to find something to put on is I'm hot. I'm wearing my PJs and I need to take the PJs off because I went to sleep last night thinking it was going to be cold and it wasn't cold, and so I end up overheated because I'm sensitive to the heat. Um, so I needed to find something to cool me off. So I'm wearing a sundress. And this made me think about the fact that there was a time that, first of all, and this is going to be really weird for me to go here, but I'm going to go here anyway. There was a time where putting on a bra was absolutely mandatory for me. My undergarments, because I came from the 60s. I was born in 1963. And when you put on a dress, you wore a slip, you wore all your understuff underneath it and all that. So the way we dress today and the way we dressed when I was a child is completely different. And I have come to the point in my life where I don't have a job to go to anymore. I don't have a corporate image that I have to maintain. I don't have an image of anything that I need to maintain for anybody except for me. And so I've reached the point at 62 where bras are just not a thing for me anymore. And I know that's a weird statement to make, but let me explain. I am someone who was a stick figure physically. I mean, I was long and lean all the way up all my life until I got to be 15, 14 years old, actually. And the summer of my 14th birthday, I went from flat chested little girl to double D's in 3 months. That is a massive change to your body when you're 14. And my first bra was not a training bra. It wasn't a little girl's, just a little No, my mom had to go in her room and get one of her bras and put it on me, literally over a 3 month period. And it was so startling because we had moved across the country in May when my eighth grade year ended and school was out at the end of May. We moved from South Carolina back to California. I was born and raised in California, and my parents weirdly decided to move back home suddenly in my at the end of my seventh grade year, and then once they got back to Charleston, they realized why they left, and so it was a real quick turnaround trip. So by the end of the school year, let the kids finish school, and we're moving back. So I moved back to California. Well, my parents had to fly us back to California. So they flew me and my the brother that was closest in age to me first. Uh and my other brother and sister who were graduated from high school by that time had to stay for another few months until they could fly them out too. So when I left Charleston, I left looking like a little girl, and my brother who was left there didn't move to California until September. So 3 months later, he shows up in California, and the first thing he said was, what happened to my little sister who had no breasts? Because who is this woman standing in front of me? And that was how massive the change was over that 3 month period. So I literally matured physically over a summer, and it was very, very abrupt. So From the age of 14, wearing a bra was an absolute necessity for me because there's no way you can be as skinny as I was in the rest of my body and have double D's and not put a very substantial bra on. Because if you don't, it's indecent. I went to high school in the late 70s and graduated in 81. And yeah, I was the butt of a lot of jokes from the boys because the funny thing that they thought was so hilarious was to poke me in the sides because I was real ticklish and watch me jump. And they would do that all day long. And it was really cruel and upsetting, and I didn't like it. But there was really nothing to do except tell my big brother and see if he handles that, which he did in some cases. But my point in saying all that is I spent my entire life from the age of 14 being strapped into a bra. And I'm going to say honestly, bras are not your friend when you are heavy breasted like I am. Brasiers are uncomfortable. But they're necessary because if you've got what I've got, you need the support. And the tighter and more supportive the bra is, the more uncomfortable it becomes wearing it all day, every day, for 40 years. So by the time I got 60, I understood why my mom had a drawer full of bras that she never wore anymore. I did not understand why my mom decided I'm not doing it anymore. Well, when I got to be in my late 50s, I started to understand because once those hot flashes kick in and you start going through the change, the last thing you want to do is be tied up with tight clothing. You need something loose and flowing that's not going to make you feel any more uncomfortable than you already are. So going through the change, going through that late life change that women go through, and having to put on a bra at the same time, and it's hot and you're already uncomfortable and in a bad mood because life is just not cool right now. Putting on a bra is just not cool. I don't like it. And the Tina that I used to be would never have stepped outside of her house without a bra on. The Tina I am today has learned that sleep bras and surprisingly, maternity bras are lifesavers. They absolutely are for when you're my age and you're built like I am and your focus is on getting through the day because the bottom line for someone like me, i'm I'm someone who has ADHD that was never diagnosed until I didn't find out until I was 59. I'm also extremely uncomfortable with the heat, not only because I've already gone through the change. So I'm not having any hot flashes anymore. But it did make me very, very uncomfortable in the heat. I also had Graves' disease, which is overactive thyroid. That makes you hot too. So all of those factors make me very uncomfortable in the heat. And which is why I'm sitting out in February, 64-degree weather, complaining about being hot. But the bottom line is now it's not about looking a particular way so other people are impressed. It's about me being comfortable and getting through my day because when all is said and done and I need something positive to think about, my positive thought is, baby, you have survived. The fact that you're still here through all of this, wearing a sundress in a comfortable bra, is positive. I can't find anything else more positive than that.